We got 1 minute. Oh, you already recording? All right, let's go. Hey, welcome to Circle City Con, everybody. Thank you for coming to my talk. I'm Jay Smith. This is my first talk at a con. I have run workshops. I've done other stuff. I'm pretty loud. You'll see me working security out there. Say hi, please. You'll see my shirt. It says, tell me if my talk sucked or rocked. Tell me. It's a good way to meet. So this is teaching youth about cybersecurity, if anybody will let you. As I was researching how to give a talk, I saw a lot of advice on not using Sun Tzu quotes. So I did a little research and I found Sun's brother Todd, who had some more obscure quotes. And I think he's pretty dead on. I hate geese. All right. So this is me. I'm an Army vet. I studied psychology at U of L. That was before the U of L, you know. I'm a self-taught web developer, InfoSec in 2015, and at least one or two of you in here because you just want to see what this jerk looks like in real life. That was me at 2 years old, but like I told Danny, I was far better looking then, so I just stick with it. Okay, so a disclaimer on this talk. It's not a technical talk where you're going to learn what you need in order to get into schools and talk to kids about cybersecurity. Because everybody that I've reached out to online and talked to has an entirely different experience. School districts are completely different in their requirements. Hopefully some of the things that I've struggled with may speak to you or give you kind of an idea. That's kind of the idea of this is, I was really shocked by the time I got through this little journey of mine, how difficult this could be. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Oh, here's another one. More of Todd. Not a big fan of his brother. Okay, so here's the landscape. These are the kind of the easy to understand reasons why teaching kids about cybersecurity are so important. Of course, our industry has a tremendous amount of need. We know that. During my research, I determined there's between 300 and 400 million open jobs between now and the rest of time. So there's no telling, but everybody needs jobs. Job skills. Some of the schools I've talked in, they're certifying kids in Security Plus, Network Plus, A Plus before they even graduate high school. Just fantastic. So for those people whose learning style isn't utterly suited to the usual university type thing, they can come out of high school and make $60,000 a year if they're in the right market. Safety. This is the one that spoke to me the most. And I'll show you in a second what kind of gave me the idea about this. But so when I was a teenager, I saw war games. I did everything he did in war games because I saw it. I took apart my Commodore 64 and did everything I should not be doing with that. I destroyed my Atari several times, ColecoVision, Intellivision, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Had YouTube been around when I was a teenager, there is almost no doubt in my mind I'd be in jail. Because if I saw it and I thought I could do it, I would do it. So it's really important to me to get these kids early because of neuroplasticity. And that's where it gets kind of heady and nerdy. But there's a lot of research that's pretty solid about there being certain milestones in life where whether it's language acquisition, music learning, language learning, and computers, it's far more important to get that stuff early. It's far more difficult as adults to just pick it up. And I think that's the main reason I've been so successful in self-teaching and web development and information security is because I was exposed to computers out in California when I grew up at a very young age. We were coding in BASIC in 3rd grade. And that's great. I live in Kentucky now. We don't have that. It was all I could do to get my kids' school to start Scratch, which is something. It is something, but they don't want to move beyond that and start real programming. So that's a constant fight. So I kind of got ahead of myself a little bit. Developmental plasticity, and I do have some citations about it. Again, it's certain milestones in life before which or during which it's far easier for your synapses to actually create those connections to learn languages, learn music, and computers, because at the cortical level, computers are a language. You're putting together, you're taking ones and zeros and you're making it make sense. So here's some nerd stuff. Heuristics. These are beliefs that I have based on my knowledge, my experience, and just what I've seen. Adult learners, when it comes to learning music, and this is me trying to learn guitar as an adult, never having taken any music as a child. I couldn't do it. Could not do it. Could not make the connection between my fingers and the guitar fret do what it's supposed to do. I knew the chords. I could strum them, and you could probably figure out that it was Crazy Train, but it wasn't something you'd ever want to listen to. Languages are the same way. There are certain sounds with, particularly with African tribes, that people make in their languages that we are incapable of forming with our mouth. We cannot do it as an adult. It's only by being exposed to that stuff as a child that you can actually do that. And that's why adult learners who have never been exposed, or most people have been exposed to foreign languages in school, but it's been very minimal unless you really dove into it and wanted to do it as an elective every year, like I did. My son's school is a perfect example. They have 1 hour of Spanish a week all through elementary school. It's pretty useless. He doesn't really know any Spanish whatsoever, and 1 to 10 is pretty much his limits. But as an adult, if he decides he wants to pick up French, Russian, German, Spanish, he's going to have a much harder time than kids who actually got a lot of exposure to that early on. And anybody, I would think, who has tried to learn a musical instrument or learn a foreign language as an adult using Babbel or using something like that, you'll struggle a little bit. But if you were a child that got a lot of that, I think it'll help you out. So I got to give respect to these 3 guys right here. After DerbyCon 2017, they created this website, Hackers in Education. And this is what prompted me to do this. I'm not a practitioner. I'm not a professional in information security. I work in transportation. Hacking and breaking is just what I did as a kid. My day job is my day job. That's what I did when I got out of the Army and was I stuck with because it pays the bills. But I love learning everything I can about InfoSec. So after DerbyCon, I actually met 2 of these guys there. They started Hackers in Education. The idea of the program being we need to get in with local law enforcement and get in with the schools and get in front of kids now so that they understand this is a viable career path. And also for the safety reasons I mentioned, if they want to learn it, they're going to learn it. We would all just rather they do it in the right way. Oh, more Todd Zoo. He was feeling a little salty that day. Okay, so assumption is the mother of all mistakes. This is a quote that most of us know a little bluer from Under Siege 2, Eric Bogosian. But this is the original quote that his colorful quote came from. So we belong to a Catholic parish in Louisville. Because of where our neighborhood is, there are a lot of police officers in that parish from all different jurisdictions in the area and around it. So I assumed, because Hackers in Education was a big part of it was local law enforcement, I'm in. No problem. Just call my friends. So yeah, they were a little helpful in getting me email addresses of people that handle cybersecurity and community engagement at the law enforcement level, at the district level. Those email addresses went nowhere. They were never answered. And my friends are, they have their own responsibilities within the law enforcement. So, and I don't want to take up too much of their time. But I found, this is my first stop, LMPD, which is the largest police force in Kentucky. And that's what happened. I got nowhere at all. And that was my first attempt. So that was 1.5 years ago. Security by Obscurity. They have email addresses that are never even monitored, checked, or answered. They're there. I guess they're for vendors. I'm not sure why they're there. But I had to get through to a couple people to talk to them and say, hey, I know this is your name, and I know this is an email address with your name on it. What's up? And he said, oh, nobody checks those. Awesome. So next, I'll go directly to schools. I coach a lot of kids at our school. I feel like it's a product that it sells itself. I'm not looking for money. I'm looking to come into the school and talk about careers in cyber education and safety, online safety. It seems like a no-brainer. Where am I? Defense in depth. Yeah. So I had a lot of challenges here. I got with somebody who handles business and IT track in Jefferson County Public Schools. And he put me in touch with a couple of other people, and at the end of 7 or 8 interactions, I was on the phone with the regional director of NYSERC out of Louisiana. Great. I was spending a lot of time and energy talking about what a great idea this is without getting closer to doing this. It was frustrating because everybody I talked to, it seemed, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Call so-and-so and we'll set something up. Called so-and-so. Awesome. That's awesome. You should get these 5 people together. It just kept on going and going. And that's why it said defense in depth. It's a honeypot. I was spinning my wheels talking to people who ultimately were not going to put me in a classroom talking about cybersecurity. So I got to pivot. Go to the schools directly. So then I started doing a little social engineering and finding hundreds and hundreds of teacher emails. Business teachers, computer teachers, the few that have cyber engineering tracks, I sent them emails, in addition to every principal, assistant principal, school counselor, and anybody else who was ancillary to that. Even school resource officers who were in law enforcement too, who might think this is a good idea. Tons and tons of them go out. And I started getting a little bit of a response. So I finally had a little bit of success. And this was after an entire year. So another DerbyCon had come and passed, and I was still trying because it's just what I do. So a young female academy, a high school academy in Louisville, it's Catholic, it's a private school, responded. And it was a teacher, and she said, yeah, absolutely. I have freshman classes of, ninth graders that, you can talk about whatever you want. So I said, so how about online safety, not sharing pictures, little stories about, what's happened to people who have been groomed online, things like that. And then I'll throw in a little career talk at the end of it because this particular school doesn't have much of a computer or cyber program. So she said, you're probably going to be talking to the wrong group if you get heavy careers. So that's perfectly fine. I gave 2 talks. Of the course of a week, I hit 3/4 of freshmen in the school, and then nothing. And I was very effusive with my follow-up, my thank you emails, called the principal, thanked her tremendously for the opportunity to talk to the students. A very good friend of mine has a daughter who's a junior at the school, so I had her do a little research and just ask around, like, was it too dark? Because some of that subject matter got a little dark. She said, no, the kids loved it. And I thought the kids loved it. They were very interactive. They had a lot of questions. And that's, as a little side note, if and when you do get in front of students, typically towards the end where I've discovered the success is about 10 to 12 minutes of your career slides and how to get into the field and whatnot, and then just Q&A. And just let them ask. Because a lot of the classes are going to ask the same thing. Which depictions in the movies or TV is the closest to the real thing of hacking? What if my friend's Instagram got, and it's always, fix your password. So I was really perplexed by this because the teacher, when I was walking out on both occasions, like, man, they really loved it. That was great. The principal thanked me while I was there. The students seemed to love it. I gave them a bunch of camera covers and stickers and, the usual hacker swag that we have a little bit laying around usually after these conferences. I just couldn't get it. And it was 5 or 6 weeks going on that I had no idea. Till my friend whose daughter is a junior posted on Facebook, local businesswoman who was an alumni of that academy came and gave the entire school pretty much the same talk. Which, she's a businesswoman. She's an alumni of this academy. And if, there's not many people here from Louisville, but if you are, the Catholic school community, it's very tight with their connections. So she runs a marketing company, but she's a self-made businesswoman. And she came in and she talked to an entire high school full of young ladies. I can't bemoan that. But, at least I learned a little bit. So when I talked to my friend's daughter again, she said, yeah, so-and-so went home and told her mom about it. And her mom knew this woman who ran this company. And she said, well, I'd like to do that. It is what it is. So this is where, after a year and about 2 months, I had gotten into 2 high schools of constantly trying. And I was starting to think, yeah, this is starting to get like a waste of time. But I am persistent. Awesome. So one thing I did was I took my education and my learning of what has been happening, and I wrote a CFP for Circle City Con, this one right here. I had never spoken at a conference before. I did run workshops here last year, but that's kind of what I do. Is I teach people. I do it in my job too. But doing my first talk, so I was pretty pumped about this because it's my first talk. I love this conference and I love the people who run it deeply. So the funny thing is, not even 2 days later, teacher out of the blue. Don't even remember sending him an email. He's at one of the other he's at a boys' Catholic school, St. X, in Louisville. 2 days later, because now, in my mind, I've marketed myself as, yes, I have been trying my butt off to get in these schools and talk to these kids, and I finally made it through 2, but I got ghosted. My challenges would be a great talk. Talk accepted. Why don't you come talk to my class? Okay. So, I'm not going to not do it. This is me 45 minutes after my appointment to come talk to his class, sitting in the principal's office still waiting for him to come get me. So, yeah, it's just one of those things, I was getting frustrated. But he's a teacher. He is a teacher. And who knows what he's got going on back there at an all-boys Catholic high school. And sure enough, when he came in, he was very upset that he was so late, and he had to deal with an upset student. Something was going on. I am definitely not a higher priority than that. And sure enough, he said, if you've still got time, my next class is coming in. Why don't you just hit them up? The junior APs. Sure. It doesn't matter to me. And that turned into an awesome talk. And this is just, oh wow, that got really messed up. Well, that sucks. That's all right. Aaron Schwartz. That's what's being, so these are everything we talked about. And you don't have to, and this is where I got the idea. So I gave him the slide presentation because we were a little rushed. We only had about 40 minutes in their class section. Gave him the slide presentation. I said, what are you guys interested in? What are you interested in? And they were asking everything. The deep web, Tor, all that stuff. Do I really have to go to college if I want to do this? No. Your parents are spending $60,000 on high school, so they may want to go to college anyway. I'm saying, you don't, but don't tell them I told you you don't. So now what do I do? I've given one talk at St. X. The teacher was very, very happy with it. Of course, they had finals coming, so they get very busy. And that's one thing I learned is teachers have a lot of demands on them. They don't have a lot of free time to figure out how to work you in. And I'm finding I'm not getting the reach. So the response is fantastic. The students at both Mercy Academy and St. X Academy, they loved it. And you can tell. You can tell if they're checked out. So the product is solid. Why can't I sell it? Because I'm selling it for nothing. So I got to pivot again. Good friend of mine, very good friend of mine. Oh, we're selling. I'm talking way too fast. I apologize. Very good friend of mine named Bob. Bob is kind of the anti-me in that he runs some kind of mortgage business. So he only eats what he kills, as they call it. He is a salesman through and through. He's the kind of person that if you're a practitioner, you're probably like, God, sales is here. Marketing. But having talked to my friends and a lot of people in the community trying to get this done in some way, I had been getting the same message. Everybody had the same confusion. Like, yeah, what kid doesn't want to hear about this? Hacking is cool. Hacking careers are awesome. You can make great money. You can not go to jail. No downside. So I said, you know what, I'm going to talk to Bob about it. And he and I had a few beers and a few more. And then after he just let me listen, or he just listened to me, let me spew on, spiel. At the end of it, he goes, man, he said, there was a lot of that stuff over my head. He said, I can tell you're passionate about it, and I can tell you know it, but you're not marketing it. And, of course, my face just, oh, what? I'm going to market it? We don't like marketing. We're hackers. We want real. We don't want to be sold. As a community, if we are being sold something or it's too shiny on the outside, we're going to dig under and find out what's real on the inside. So it's kind of the antithesis of what we do. But he said, look, you're just reaching out to all these teachers. You're shotgunning all over the world and you're just saying, hey, what can I do for you? He said, do this instead. Tomorrow, send an email out again. Just say, hey, May 25th, 26th, and 27th, I'm free from 1 to 3 p.m. or whatever days you want. Which classes, what teachers have time for me? And I send it to the guy at JCPS at the public schools. I'll be damned if 1 hour later, I didn't have appointments at 3 high schools to talk to them after a year and a half. So not only success, which is awesome, but then I also have to go back to Bob, say, you were right, man. I actually had to consider my audience as opposed to assuming that my product was so great that you couldn't not let me in your classroom. And that's really where the place where my challenges came from, was thinking that the content was so good and the fact that I wasn't charging you for it. Well, you're just dumb for not asking me in your class. Yeah, I tried. I mean, I was like, yeah, I'll put in a quote about marketing here that's really relevant and makes sense. God, it's easy to hate marketing. How about that? So here's where the story, we've hit the high point, and I've got this really awesome, I've got all these appointments in the public schools, and over the course of 2 weeks, I spoke in 5 public schools to every grade level, and I got to learn some things from there too. Don't bother with freshmen. Probably don't bother with sophomores. Juniors are engaged, seniors are all in. And that makes sense. But yeah, I got 5 different schools. I got to see all their different cyber engineering programs or computer programs or lack of computer programs. And these didn't even count the private schools. So these were the public schools. So then the private school teacher at St. X High School, while I was doing this, because of course when it rains it pours, he contacted me again and he said, hey, my juniors are done with their AP testing next week and I've got 2 weeks of nothing until the end of the year, watching movies and whatever. Of course. This is $16,000 a year tuition right there. He said, if you've got the time, however many days you want to come in, whatever you want to do. That's what I was looking for. So I can go in there and basically show off the teenagers and get them excited about cybersecurity. So I did. I spent 5 2-hour blocks with them over 2 weeks before school got out, and we did everything. We did onion scanning. We did some social engineering on ourselves. We did, some Facebook security, stuff like that. We even deobfuscated some images and stuff. They loved it. They chewed it up. They just ate it. They love it. So I was right in the beginning, as I keep mentioning, that the content, there was nothing wrong with it. The product itself sells itself. So the title of the talk, How to Reach and Teach Kids About Cybersecurity, teaching them is easy. They want to know it. And we're not wrong in thinking that this product is super awesome. And they want careers in it. It's how to get in. And that's what we have to assume, is we have to come at it from a place where eating our pride a little bit and understanding that teachers, educators at every level have so many demands and so many it's like that little grid on your GitHub. Theirs is all green. And they just have to wait for one to turn white for you to stick in there. Yeah, that was just me playing around on Canva. And I don't like that guy, so I put a helmet on his head. And that has led to more. Now I'm on one board at one of the public schools to help them pivot off of their cyber engineering and create a cybersecurity track at one school, which is great. I'm going to work more with the one private school next year. He's looking to move away from, I think they're coding in Xamarin or something. They're doing primarily Apple development, and he wants to do some cybersecurity. But I also decided it was time for me to get off the pot, because as I was telling Danny, I've been in transportation for 25 years. I've been in trucking. It's what I do in the day job. It pays the bills. It's paid very well, but it's not what I love. Cybersecurity is what I love. breaking stuff, hacking. It's what I love. So I am now running my own workshops during the summer for teenagers in Louisville. I've gotten good response, and I need to work on the marketing, because the kids who are signed up, and I got them. It's an interesting story. I've got plenty of time. God, I talk too fast. So when it comes to marketing something like this, if you're an independent, you never know what works. So of course, a friend of mine who does marketing, she said, when you do the follow-up pre-registration emails, you ask them where they heard about it. Because I did the Facebook campaign ad stuff. One of them signed up based on what they saw on Facebook. The other 9 so far, which is next weekend, it's all from school. It's all from talking in school. So I think there's that huge barrier when they hear hacker, they see hacker, it's whatever they've seen on CSI Cyber or Mr. Robot or whatever. Mr. Robot is the one that I will tell them. If you want to have a good indication of what doing it is like, now it's not in a garage rave every time or, getting your ear chopped off kind of stuff. That's not, I guess you could probably get yourself in that situation. I wouldn't encourage it. But I think being in front of them and showing them that it is accessible. And the fact that some of them already code Python, he already codes Python. Some of them already do app programming, so they know the back end, they know the nuts and bolts. They're usually pretty surprised at how accessible cybersecurity is to them already, because they're not getting taught it at all. They don't know anything about it. So I think the more we talk about it, the more they understand this isn't something that I have to, it's like a doctor or a dentist. If you tell somebody at 15, hey, you want to be a doctor? Yeah. Don't I have to go to school for like 83 years? Yeah. Well, If you say you want to get into cybersecurity, I don't think the assumption is that that's accessible now. I can start learning that stuff right now, because there is no degree barrier to it. It's not a professional certification that you have to have anything to start doing it. And that's the other point, is I don't want you going on YouTube and starting to do it right now. So that being said, I'm hoping this is a success, and I'm hoping I spend a whole lot of time next year in the schools while my current employer continues to pay for it. And they do. They're very, very forgiving of that. One thing before I ask if anybody has any questions, I want to thank everybody who puts together Circle CityCon. This is an awesome conference. Last year, when I was about 1 year into learning cybersecurity, they let me run workshops in malware analysis and volatility forensics. It was an incredible experience. And I worked security operations last year. I work it this year. It's one of the best ways to learn people or to meet people. But this conference is really special in the Midwest. It's just small enough, but it's just big enough too that you're going to meet a whole lot of people from all over. I think Arizona is about the furthest out I've met somebody so far, but I'm sure somebody from California here somewhere. That's where I was born. I do have references in my slides, and I'll post the slide deck. And this is some really heady nerd. All that stuff about neuroplasticity is pretty much in here. So unless you have absolutely nothing better to do with the rest of your evening, I would not look up any one of these papers. My psychology degree gave me a really good method for finding research and citing it, but no one else reads it because it's really, really dry. Oh yeah, so I forgot about Todd. Had one more for him. It's a little blue. So that's pretty much my presentation. And I'm sorry that I didn't take up 50 minutes. I know it's one of the major no-nos, along with using Sun Tzu quotes. But I really appreciate you guys sitting in here and talking about this with me. Again, your results are going to vary massively if you go down this path. I have talked to people online who had no challenges whatsoever. I believe she was in Minnesota, and I think their school district is very, very ahead of the time when it comes to cyber engineering and stuff like that. And they have the Air Force cyber warriors, I think it is, where they actually have the contest and they go to Washington, D.C. It's pretty cool. Cyber Patriots, yes. It's a cool program, and that's who I was talking to from Louisiana, from NYSERC. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm letting you out here early. But I really appreciate your time. This was my first talk. I hope I didn't blow it. Yes, sir?
I have a question.
Oh, yes, you did.
You ain't done yet.
Okay. Let me have it. I forgot about Q&A.
Trying to get out of here early. Did you get, so you had mentioned when you talked to your marketing guy, right, and he gave you guidance, and that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And when the one teacher finally did, just out of the blue, contact you, are you getting feedback from them? Like, did you say, like, what took you so long? Or, like, what was the holdup on their end?
I didn't, because I didn't want to thumb my nose at the person who, it's so difficult to get them. And again, they're teachers. And I know they don't make a ton of money and they have a ton of responsibility. So I haven't. I probably will. Just like when my one friend told me to start asking where you heard about this, I probably will begin that discovery. I haven't yet, because all of this, getting in those 5 public schools was all in May. Prior to that, yeah, this is all just so that's why the "Are you kidding me" little slide, as of February, when I think it was February, and I got my acceptance for this talk at Circle City Con, I was getting nowhere. And my whole talk was, I'm getting nowhere. And then as soon as my talk is accepted, hey, you're somewhere. Oh, awesome. It's great. Let me just rewrite that.
So do you recommend getting, as far as like levels of abstraction, getting directly to the teachers? Do they have to get buy-in from principals?
It actually varies greatly. And the question was, at what level is it most effective? Do you go to the teachers or the principals? Honestly, the principals are just going to they're going to forward that email. They're not going to engage in it. They're not going to try. They're running a business. The teachers are the ones that I've had the most success with. And it's just got to be the right teacher at the right time. Now, the problem with teachers' emails is they are massively firewalled. Nothing gets through to them. So, the public school teachers, now the private school teachers are a little different. The public school teachers, I was actually put to them by the guy at the business and IT lead at the district. And that was after I talked to Bob and had sent that email saying, hey, I'm free these 3 days next week. Which one of your teachers have time? I'll talk to them about careers. So instead of me putting the pressure on him and saying, I'll do whatever you want, whenever you want, you figure it out. That's what I was doing. I was saying, hey, I'd love to talk about anything cybersecurity, anytime you can get me into any school. So he's saying, oh, so you're giving me a task to figure out when I can fit you in and what I want you to talk about. That's what I was doing. And I didn't realize that until my friend kind of pointed that out to me. Again, because he lives in that world where he's constantly selling. And if he doesn't sell, he doesn't survive. So he was saying, just take that you've got, he said, your content is clearly good and you clearly know what you're talking about. You just need to pivot a little bit. And just tell them, hey, I'm for you. Here's what I talk about. Here's my slides if you want to see them. And I can do it this hour, and this hour next week. Who you got? And sure enough, within a day, he's got them. And it was amazing. And I was thoroughly impressed by Bob. Because me and my nerd friends sit around and make fun of Bob. Because Bob's a sales guy. And he's slick. And he's fast moving. And he's shake everybody's hand and glad handing and kissing babies and all that. But sure enough, that animal exists in this world too, for a reason, because they're successful. And without him, I probably never would have gone beyond those 2 schools. So marketing is everywhere. That's kind of the point. We have to get over ourselves in our ideas that everything has to be real, otherwise it's not cool enough for us in cybersecurity. And that's what I had to get over to make this work. Go fire. We got nothing but time. We got nothing but time.
Do you have, well, actually, let me ask this one first. Have you gotten any guidelines from them? Like, are there misconceptions from administration that say, please don't talk about this, or are they as interested as the kids are?
They are, for the most part. I kind of opened that door myself, especially with the first talks with the freshman young ladies. And I just said, hey, they're young women. And it's kind of a natural thing to talk about online safety and sharing pictures and people being groomed online and human trafficking. And I said, I don't want to get it too dark. And she said, no, I don't want you to get it too dark. And I actually, in her case, I shared with her the entire slide deck beforehand. I said, here, just click through it. And if something raises your spidey sense, let's talk about it. I said, I will gladly kick anything out of there because this is you have to live with the aftermath of what I say. I did, but, so no, nothing was, I think the teachers haven't had this experience yet, and they probably learned as much from me because the people that I've repeat with, they've had some guidance on the next, hey, last time they kind of lost interest in this, or hey, you mentioned this one time, could you talk about that? I get that a lot, which that's awesome because it helps me focus too, because I can talk about anything. And unfortunately, if I don't get any guidance from them, I'm sitting here with the kids and halfway through I'm like, this is sucking. Let's do something else. And then I'll just get on and do some Python script to just scrape Twitter.
Do you have any do you have any ways to keep in touch with these kids afterwards? Like, are you forming groups, message boards? That's what Bob keeps hitting me up with, that I have been a little too weenie to broach first. He said after, and Danny had asked, do I have any way to follow up with them to kind of keep that audience going? And I hadn't yet. And that's the one thing Bob and also another friend of mine who's in marketing said, you got it. And I said, man, they're kids though. I don't want to be asking for email addresses and all that. I don't want to get into that world. And he said, no, he said, you don't do that. He said, create yourself a Twitter account for your defense bureau or whatever. Create yourself a Twitter account for them, not Simple Skink. They don't need that. And let them find you. And I have had ones follow up because one of them I gave him the Active Countermeasures book by John Strand because he was really into it. But he was also the type asking the questions where that kid could be in jail in 2 years because he was really into it. And I told because his teacher was concerned too. He said, hey, could you make sure you tell Troy to, you will go to jail? I said, yeah, I did that a lot, but my idea was if I give him that book, which is very easy read, it's very small, but it also really puts you in that defender mindset while also letting you feel like a cool attacker. And he'd already read the book and he asked his teacher for my email and shot me an email and said, it's a great book. I'm in. So I have to figure out how to do that without feeling kind of greasy about asking kids for email addresses. I I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe like a local, is there local DEF CON groups in Louisville?
No, matter of fact, I'm heading up the OWASP chapter that's starting in this summer. I just got roped into that and was going to just join the chapter, and then the guy who was running it dropped out and said, hey, you would like doing this? Yeah, I would. So, and we have Civic Data Alliance. We have a 2600 group. They're not geared towards kids so much. But I think I've got a lot of traction in what I did this year going into next year. I think I'm not going to be running out of opportunities. I did reach back out to the public school, all 4 of the teachers whose classes I talked in and the guy from the district. I reached back out to him last week and they all responded and said, yeah, it was awesome. Can't wait to see you next year. So I told them, I said, anytime your class brings up something or you want to talk about something, give me a week's notice. I'll be in there and I'll have all the research and we'll go for it.
Any cool questions you get from kids that come to mind and make you laugh or?
Honestly, it's mostly about what can I get away with? What can I get caught doing? How can I not get caught doing it? And what if someone hacks my Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all that? They all are along those same lines, but some of them have some really cool ones. Because one of the teachers had actually shown them the internet's own boy. One of the schools had a debate in the class about privacy. So they asked me about cell phone backdoors versus public safety, which was incredible conversation. It was awesome. That was cool. And it allowed us to just go down that path and talk about that stuff. And that's why I found it to be very effective to show them the career stuff that satisfies the teacher's requirement, why the teacher let me in the room. There's the career slides. I'll share them with anybody. And then, what do you want to know? Let's talk about it. And if I don't know, I'll go find out and I'll share it with you. Which the only one I didn't know and I didn't really want to rack my brain for was somebody asked something very esoteric about public key infrastructure. I'm like, no, let's bring it back to fun stuff. Yes, sir.
Comment and then the question. You're talking mostly about older school
Yes.
students.
Yes.
Like the high school age.
Yes.
I know there's resources. IC Square has this field safety campaign.
Yep.
If you're targeting younger kids,
Yeah.
that's a great thing. There's a set of resources on the safety side.
Yeah.
You don't have to invent yourself. You can leverage. You can use that as a pivot point.
Sure.
I've seen some of that. I've also been involved not with the InfoSec side, but just as a parent, trying to engage with parent-teacher organizations as a way to get in to do programming. I don't know if you've had any success with that or any younger.
Let's see, we got time. His school, a Catholic elementary school, didn't have a coding club. They had computer class, I think it was 1 day a week, and they still have it 1 day a week. And we started, because he was very interested, we started a coding club with Scratch, which in 3rd grade, okay, great. They never really graduated past that. So kids like him who were really into programming and coding just continued on their own. He got the No Starch book on Intro to Python and just took off on his own. Honestly, it feels like that's kind of how those elementary school situations go, is that you have to give them the frontline exposure, and it has to be something like Scratch where it's accessible. Let the ones who actually are interested in it and hook on to it fly with it, and the ones who aren't can play football or whatever speaks to them. Personally, I grew up in a situation where we had to have programming every day. It was part of our curriculum. And that's why I can pick up just about anything or figure it out. And that's why I was so keen to get that going in the school. It just never really got the momentum. Did I hear? Nope. Okay. So that is pretty much my talk, and we got just 10 minutes shy. I talk really fast. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Thank you. Again, I will be working security right there all day tomorrow, all night tonight. Talk to me.